Hello everyone, welcome back to SBR Pythons. Today we've got a little video, another collaboration, back-to-back collaborations, I know. Everyone's got free time on their hands, what can I say? But I'm going to do a video that's I feel is really important. I sort of started to talk about this subject on my collaboration with Adam last week, about building a collection and maintaining a collection in terms of the genetics, and how I think it's really crucial if you want to sort of succeed straight off the bat. Like for example, this year I've had, people tell me that I'm sort of kicking, what's the term I'm looking for? Getting the ground started? I don't know what the word is. Like there's a term for it, a phrase for it. It's not there. But that's really positive to hear, but that's ultimately down to how I think I've built and maintained my collection in the first sort of year of doing this. So building a collection is absolutely crucial. I feel it's that important. That's why I've enlisted the help of today, Eddie from Sunbury Serpents. Eddie's a top bloke. He's been doing this quite a long time now, and he's got some amazing sort of projects. But what I really like about Eddie and the way that he's built his collection or maintains it now is that he definitely has his sort of goals that he wants to achieve. I've seen Eddie's clips and I know that he doesn't mention it, so I'm going to mention it for you, and I hope you don't mind, Eddie. That's just the Woma Pie project. This to me was like the standout example that I think of when I think of how Eddie maintains his collection, is that he knows exactly what he's trying to do with the Woma Pies, and that's getting that pattern back in with the likes of Enchi, and he's very adamant on it, and he's very open about talking about it, and the animals he's got is specific to try and hit that. So that's why I enlisted the help of Eddie out of everyone that came to mind, that and the fact that I know, Eddie, you've got some time to kill, so I do appreciate you making the clip for me, mate. But yeah, so firstly I want to talk a little bit about there's two words, which is the approach, that I would say pretty much sums it up perfectly. Actually, it was one of you guys, a viewer, that commented this last week in the video, and I thought, yeah, that's actually perfect when I looked it up. So I'll just get the definition out from Google for you guys. It's the pragmatic approach, which is a way of dealing with something based on practical considerations, Now, I think that's absolutely perfect in terms of how I would say you should build a collection. So get the sort of puzzle pieces, no pun intended if that's what you want to work with, puzzle, but get the pieces into place, and start building up your collection practically based on what you're actually trying to achieve, rather than what, might look pretty or is the cheapest and things like that. But I'll pass you straight over to Eddie, and he can talk about it, and then we'll sort of come back here and we can have a look at some of my collection, talk about it in terms of how I've used the pragmatic approach to build my collection. But firstly, over to you, Eddie.
Hi guys, it's Eddie from Sunbury Serpents. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everybody is healthy and safe and staying in during these strange times. First of all, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Matt for having me on your channel. It's been a long time we've been discussing this, but in this current situation and these times we can't, I can't come to yours, you can't come to mine, but we'll definitely do that in the future. And today's video, guys, is going to be on maintaining your collection. So this is sort of a number of different things to discuss. Obviously, I'll try and narrow it all down. So when I say maintaining your collection, what I mean is really have a think about what you want to do in this hobby. Do you want to breed ball pythons? If you want to breed ball pythons, do you want to follow a project? Would you want to start your own project? Is there a gene which you think might work with something else, which you haven't seen out there or you haven't seen done yet? And is that what you want to do? Now, I am guilty myself of getting, when I first got into this hobby, I wanted a snake room. Like all these breeders I saw online, I wanted all the snakes I could possibly get into this room. So I went out and I bought a fire, I bought an enchi, I bought a banana, I bought banana pewter, I bought lots of beautiful animals, which I didn't really have a direction for. So I was really going out and I was buying things for the sake of having lots of animals in my collection. And it's taken a number of years for me to actually realise that thinning out your collection, bringing in unique animals, if you can, bring in unique animals, follow a project, get on board with a project. There are a lot of amazing breeders out there in the world who have wonderful projects, who a lot of people are following and a lot of people are taking inspiration from. And I feel that I've taken a lot of inspiration from some of the really big breeders, and I think it's so important when you're getting into this side of the hobby, I should say, which is the breeding of royals. Really think about it. Think about what you want to do, where you want to go, because if you don't, you'll just end up like I did after a year, kind of looking back at the collection and thinking, why did I do that? Why did I buy all these unusual animals which don't really, you know, I perhaps at that time I was thinking, well, I could put an Enchi to a fire and make an Enchi fire, which is a beautiful animal. But you know, a few years down the line, here I am. I've had a lot of help from a lot of good friends in the hobby. I've refined my collection. I know the direction I'm going in, and that's where I am now. So I would urge you to really consider this when you're getting into it, when you're really thinking about the direction you want to go in. Again, this leads me on to thinking about, you know, it is a difficult thing to do to not go out and buy animals. You know, I'm guilty of it. I've been guilty of it in the past. You know, I still do it. I've got no space in this room for any more animals apart from my hatchling rack. And then I'm going to have to cycle animals and sell animals to fit more in this room. So, you know, I'm still on Morph Market every day. I'm always on there. It's like I'm kind of fishing for something that I don't have. But in reality, you know, I look at my phone, I'm staring at it, I see a beautiful animal. Then I think about my collection. I think about what I've got, what projects I've got. Could that animal be vital for a project? And, you know, at the end of the day, then I go back and I think, no, I don't need that animal. So I have to really kind of clench my fists and grit my teeth and say, you know what, I don't need those animals. And you have to take a step back, which is very difficult because we all have that sort of, that want and that need to have more animals, to build a bigger collection. But it's so important, as I said earlier, stick to your guns. Figure out the snakes you want in your projects, the genes which you like, some, you know, the pattern changers, the color enhancers, the recessives, like I said, whatever it is you want to do, follow it and be really strong with yourself and try not to just buy for the sake of buying. The final thing I want to touch on is, one of the things I find the most beautiful part of this hobby is hatching your own babies. And hatching your own babies, you know, it never gets old. It's the most wonderful thing. It brings joy every single time I see a snake come out of an egg. It's a beautiful thing. It's another life being born into the world. You know, again, but it's your responsibility. So you've got to make sure you look after all the animals. But it's, you know, I'll never get bored of hatching snake eggs. As I said earlier, I refine all my projects, so I don't pair snakes just for the hell of pairing them to make babies, to make money, because I'm not in it for the money. But I love it. You know, I've got 3 clutches in the incubator at the moment, and I'm there kind of, oh, how long have I got? I've got to wait, and you've got to be patient. But I tell you what, it's worth it. It's worth every second, because it's just one of the most fantastic parts of this hobby. It's a beautiful thing. And finally, what I will say, and you know, hundreds of people will disagree with me, don't cut your eggs. Let them pip, let them come out. They'll come out stronger. Everyone has a different opinion. I don't cut. End of. Okay, guys, I'm going to pass you back over to Matt. Once again, Matt, thanks so much for having me on your channel. And hopefully we'll chat again soon. Take care, guys. Stay safe.
So there we go. That was Eddie, just talking a little bit about how he has built up his collection and maintained it. And I don't mean in terms of like cleaning it, but how he's maintained the genetics involved. Thank you very much, as I say, for doing that, Eddie. You guys got a real insight there in terms of how Eddie sort of sees it. And me and Eddie are very sort of on the same wavelength, I think, in terms of how we should build and maintain collections when it comes to genetics. Eddie also mentioned the fact that, you know, he went out and got a banana, he got an Enchi, he got a banana pewter, you know, he went out and looked with his eyes and things like that. And ultimately, at the end of the year, he sort of realised that he didn't have sort of a plan for all the animals. Now, obviously, I never had that because, like, I've had, you know, this is my 2nd year building this collection, and I've not sat for one moment and looked at my animals and thought, I don't know what I'm doing with that animal, because I've really practically thought about every animal that's come into this collection. So I haven't had that, but to hear it from someone like Eddie sort of puts my theory of what I believe in terms of building a collection into practice. So I do appreciate hearing that, Eddie. And obviously he mentioned a little bit about maintaining a collection in terms of, you know, hatching his own babies and raising them up and doing it that way. Hopefully I can start experiencing that this year even, words. because as you'll see in this video on Sunday, tomorrow from when this video goes live, so Monday, the black pastel het pied is due her clutch. So hopefully we can get a panda out of that, which hopefully doesn't come out, you know, kinked or anything like that. And that can be the start of that process of maintaining it via my own hatchlings. Because I think ultimately, if you produce the genes you want, then ultimately you're thinking about it practically, and you've got a plan for every animal that you hold back. So at the end of the day, that's probably the best way of doing it, but obviously you can't do that when you're building it. So that's why I think it's important to highlight the building it as well. So let's have a look at how I built mine in a little bit more in detail. So you guys know, it's no secret that my first sort of animal on the pied side of it was just a straight pied male from Debbie Davis at DD Royals here in the UK. Nothing wrong with that animal. He had a really nice white to pattern ratio. However, I moved him on because I upgraded him to the black pewter pied, so obviously there was 2 more genes involved. And I knew I wanted to do that from the very start, but I didn't have the financial ability to go out and get a black pewter pied at first. That's why I settled for a pied. If I was to sort of look back on anything that I've done wrong, I would say don't settle on something. Just save it up, you know, and looking back now, there's absolutely no rush to get males. You don't need the male straight away. So I should have probably just waited to get the black pewter pied, but I couldn't wait. But you know, I was very eager. I've been looking for a pied for, at that point, 5 or 6 years. So I couldn't wait, but that's one thing I would mention. But the second animal to come in here is still here. It's this banana het pied female who's been on a hunger strike right now, which is really frustrating, but there we go, they do it, don't they? This girl was the second animal that I picked up in sort of building this collection, and as you can see, there's a reason she's still here, and that's because, as I said, using the pragmatic approach, I knew the plans for this girl straight away, and so that's why she's still here. Yes, I've adapted the plans as I've gone along, as I mentioned on last week's video. No, sorry, not last week's video, I've sort of recorded some, so I'm getting myself confused, but you'll see in the video upcoming where I talk about my projects that I mentioned that this girl was initially sort of purchased on the basis of making black pastel banana pieds. You know, she's now moved on to a different project, the super banana gravels, but ultimately I want to get the black pastel back involved because that was the reason I picked her up. And so sort of that's why she's still here, and that's why all the animals that I've picked up have either been sort of upgraded in terms of, you know, as I said, the pied to the black pewter pied, or the Enchi double het to the Enchi orange dream post double het, because obviously if he does prove out double het, that's an upgrade. I've never sold an animal because I don't, you know, have a reason to have that animal in terms of projects anymore. So I would definitely say that's a good example of how I've sort of built my collection based on having a sort of a goal in mind for every animal I'm picking up. So one thing that Eddie didn't mention in terms of like actually wording it the way that I would word it is deviating. So this is in terms of when you're growing or expanding, but mainly growing. Obviously, as you grow, you're going to get more animals. It's the end of the day. It is an addiction. It's a good addiction, but it is an addiction. So you will pick up more animals. But what I mean by deviating is there's nothing wrong with deviating. And I think you know, this is what you was trying to get at, Eddie. You just didn't use the word deviate. You can obviously bring other genetics involved or get other genetics involved. So for example, if we step away from the pied for a second, if you love banana and you love clown, there's no reason you can't do them together. And then if you see an Enchi and you think that's incredible, you can deviate and go and do, you know, Enchi clown. You know, you still ultimately you're working with that clown or you know, banana. It doesn't really matter. You know, you want to go banana Enchi sort of route. You're deviating, you're bringing the Enchi in, but you're still sticking to that ultimate goal, that ultimate project which you enjoy, which is clown or banana. And I'm not limiting it to one. Obviously, I limit myself to one because I only want to work with the pied. But if you want to limit yourself to 2 or 3, that's completely up to you. Just obviously account for the space. Because if you've got sort of, you know, 3 projects on the go, that's like, for example, for me, if I was doing Desert Ghost on the same scale as I'm doing pied, I would need 4 LPV 70 racks instead of 2. You know, you're going to need to account for that. But there's nothing wrong with deviating, as I say. And the only thing I would say in terms of the other end of the spectrum is the ability to adapt. And by this, I mean, if for some reason you had to shrink or, you know, you couldn't keep all these animals, have you got a backup plan in place of what animals would I specifically keep, or what animals, you know, which projects would I specifically keep? I've already thought about that. If for some reason I had to sell some of my animals, or I didn't have the time, or, you know, something like that, you know, you never know what's going to happen. and you have to cut down, do you know which projects you want to keep above the others? So for example, if something, you know, horrendous was to happen to me and I had to sort of sell or shrink, as I say, I know that my adaptability would be to pick the highway pie project, the clown pie project, and the ultramel pie project. If everything else sort of had to go, you know, it'd be horrendous, it'd be horrible. But I've sort of already planned if the worst case scenario was to happen in terms of your projects and maintaining that collection. So to end off this video, guys, I know it's been a fairly long one, but you know, I did think this was a crucial video to make, and as I say, I thank you, Eddie, for the help in making this one. I'm just going to finalise it with just a beautiful look at this girl, because she's absolutely incredible, and I do think that by the time this video goes out tomorrow, or you know, at least at the start of next week, I do think she will ovulate, because she's looking absolutely massive now, and I really am excited for this clutch. But I do hope that you guys have enjoyed today's video and it's been helpful, or if it's not been helpful, as I say, you just enjoyed it or you can relate to it. Let us know what you think about the sort of the pragmatic approach, sort of the way that I'm seeing it. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? You know, I'm completely open to what you guys think. Ultimately, I'm no, you know, expert. As I've said, the only reason that I feel confident enough to talk about this topic is because I've used that pragmatic approach myself to build this collection, or the focus approach, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter, you know, ultimately I've focused, and so that's why I feel I can talk about it. But as I say, I'm rambling as I always do. I hope you guys have liked it. Leave a like, leave a comment, turn the notification bell on and hit the subscription button. And yeah, thank you again, Eddie, and I'll catch you guys next week.